Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan. That noise you're hearing is the ventilator. Welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. It's the episode of The Guest Awakens. I am your unfortunately not Puerto Rican host,
No, no,
and
it's
I
fine.
say that because we're joined by the host of a Puerto Rican Star Wars podcast. It's the one and only Goose. Hey,
Hi, hi,
Goose.
hi. Thank you. Hi, Brendan. How's it going? How's it going?
Good. I almost called you
Thanks.
Gus there for a minute.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's a fairly common mistake, but it's important that we just correct where we are. So it's totally fine. Totally fine. I understand.
Yes.
I run into that, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. No, no, and thank you. Thank you for having me. Nanny sends her regards and her apologies. I think
Yes,
we've
it's
been having some
scheduling
back and forth scheduling
scheduling
issues.
snafus.
So exactly. So I am very thankful and appreciative for your patience and in us getting our stuff together. It's been
Yeah,
a very complicated couple of months for her and for
well,
myself
it's been
with lots of life
complicated for
changes.
many
So
people.
yeah. So,
Yes,
but here we are, thankfully.
yes, here we are, and talking about Star Wars, one of our favorite things to do.
Hopefully, an escape in
Yes,
these
yes, and that's what we
days.
plan to do today. Mm, Before we begin, I wanted to make it very clear where Page Turner They Were Not stands on certain issues now. I know that your podcast often addresses the scary, real world
hmm
connections to Star Wars, and I have addressed it on occasion, but I think I want to be very direct. So let it be known to everyone listening, Page Turners They Were Not, hosted by me, first off, does not support discrimination or bigotry of any kind. Everyone is welcome on the show. And hopefully, I made it accommodating for everyone to feel comfortable here. This is a safe space, and I want that to be known. The other thing I want to be known very, very clearly, Page Turners They Would Not, and its host do not support the actions of a corrupt administration. And I say that directly, that we do not support that kind of behavior on this podcast. So let me get that out of the way to just make it very clear. This is where I stand right now. The other thing I wanted to say is, and you probably noticed this because the word woke is being tossed
hmm
around right
hmm
now,
hmm
maybe more than ever. Well, my response to that is, I would rather be awoke than asleep.
hmm
And the other thing is, I stand with Ukraine, and Ukraine did not start the war. Okay, so now we got all that out of the way. Any comments there, Goose?
No, well said, and I could not have said it better myself. I mean, it's a very politically charged time. I mean, what time isn't, to be honest? But
Yeah, that's true.
this one in particular feels a little hotter, for
Mhm,
lack of a
mhm.
of a better term, and in many ways, scarier than other circumstances because it in most cases it always feels like the pendulum of progress is always moving forward, and while
moving
fights.
forward and moving backwards, and
Right. But usually, the momentum always feels like it's going forwards, and like civil rights are being won and representation is being,
mhm,
slowly achieved and things like that. But it really feels like there's a big assault on all the progress that has been made in the last couple
mhm,
of years, which, like, let's be honest, and Trial of the Force is a Puerto Rican podcast, it's a minority podcast.
yep,
Uh, the representation that we've been advocating for the almost 5 years that we've been doing this has been slow, and we've talked that about that like in the podcast many times, and to see this vitriol and kind of aggressive reaction against just basic decency and basic
yeah,
acknowledgments to, the citizens of this country
mhm,
is kind of scary. So it's a very important moment to speak even louder than we have been in the past, but more
mm,
than that, to forge the bonds of community that we have created and make them even stronger, because there is a concerted effort to break communities and break
yeah,
the bonds of safety and comfort that a lot of us have been accustomed to, and in many cases taking for granted. So now we have to be very vigilant and stick for each other and advocate for each other, because we can't silo ourselves and only advocate for, one group or one sector, because we see that it's not like this administration and people like them aren't stopping at taking rights from one group. Once they do one group, they go to the next one. So it's important to for me, it's like a rising tide raises all boats. And I feel like if we advocate for civil rights and advocacy
mhm,
and equity for some people, ultimately we're doing it for everybody. So I think
mhm,
that we have to just expand civil liberties in every direction, because it will only benefit all of us. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's a very scary time to feel like
yeah,
the country that's supposed to be the country of freedom is being regressive in a lot of its protections
yes,
of civil liberties and rights. So yeah, we'll just take it one day at a time. It's been a
yep,
supercharged couple of weeks, but here we are. Here we are, and that's
yes,
what
here we
matters.
are.
We're here, and we're talking, and we're advocating for the things that matter to us. So,
Yep, yep, and I'm not perfect when it comes to prejudice or bigotry, but I'm learning
mhm.
and I'm trying to be better at it.
And I think that's the important thing, right? It's not
Yeah,
no one gets it completely right
no,
all of the time, and there isn't a finish line to what perfect there's no perfection in
hmm,
any of this. Is always, we always can do better, and we always should do better, and it's just having an open heart and an open mind to learn and see other people's point of view, because we'll never know everyone's point of view,
yeah,
and we just have to listen to them, and the more we listen, the more we learn, and the more we learn, the more we grow.
hmm. A very Star Wars quote. Yes, and I think the other thing that stands out really quick before we get into our main topic is, I'm someone who's a Christian
Hmm.
or tries to be like Jesus. I go to church, read the Bible, do all those things. And there's a lot of people with that description who voted for a certain person that we don't like to talk about.
Hmm.
But I'm one of those who did not. And I think coming from and I don't mean this politically, but a more conservative attitude. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm very old fashioned in many ways. But there are a lot of people with that description who voted for a certain person. But for me, as someone who's trying to be Christ-like, and yet again, I'm not perfect, that was something that I simply could not do because I felt that that would be a betrayal of what I believe in Jesus
Hmm. Hmm.
and about loving others and about treating others the way that you would want to be treated. I'm certainly trying, and I think the effort is worth it. And, hopefully I'll learn more and become better. So,
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that the words of I mean, I'm full disclosure, right? I'm not a practitioner or a believer, but I do think, I was raised Catholic,
hmm
my whole life, went to Catholic school for 12 years, so fairly familiar with the Bible and the teachings, and I think it's
hmm
very interesting to live in a time where a lot of the warnings that we learn from Exodus, especially,
yeah,
the
oh
Ten
yeah,
Commandments,
yes,
it's like thou shalt bear no false witness.
yeah,
You won't false worship false idols. And I
hmm
remember watching the Moses story and
oh yeah.
in the Charlton Heston film and the Prince of Egypt and seeing
Let my
the
people
golden
go.
calf, all the golden calf things and how God was not
Oh yeah,
happy
pretty mad,
with
yeah.
his group worshiping false golden idols, and all of a sudden we literally have
Yeah,
some rich guy make golden idols of himself, and people who claim to be under the banner of Christendom be worshiping that in
yeah.
many ways and
It's a violation of what's there in the Ten Commandments.
ignoring what Jesus said. I mean, Jesus said it himself, didn't he? He said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a
Yep,
rich man to
for a
enter the
rich man
kingdom
to
of
enter the
God.
kingdom of God.
So
Yeah.
it's this weird sycophantic worship of these
Yeah.
rich billionaires that aren't advocating for anything that Jesus said, particularly, Jesus, I mean, Jesus was with the poor people. He was with the prostitutes. He was with like those that were cast out of society, and he was compassionate and giving to them. And I think that if all of the people that claim to be Christians that are following these troublesome doctrines kind of go back to being more Christ-like instead of more Christians, I think we will improve a lot of the conditions that we're in currently in this world. If that makes sense. I
Absolutely.
don't
I
know.
absolutely agree. 100%. And I like that you said, I mean, I posted this on my Facebook years ago. I said, the world doesn't need more quote unquote Christians. The world needs more Christ-like people.
Hmm.
And you're right. If people embrace that, things will really be great. Okay, so that's all of our unfortunately scary real world
Hmm.
politics. Now, because you're a returning guest, I always like to ask a question. So, where's your excitement level for Andor season two?
It's through the roof. It's through the roof.
Mhm.
I've been as someone, and I think we talked about it one
Yeah,
of the times that we've chatted in the past, as someone that was fairly skeptical for Andor when it was the season one, when Andor season one was announced, like what seems like an eternity ago. I was very
it's
skeptical for that show because I mean, it's like, why do we need a show about this guy that we already knows what happens to him? And thankfully, I was proven completely wrong by Tony Gilroy
oh
because
yes,
I absolutely love Andor. It's probably it's probably my favorite Star Wars show that has come out
yeah,
thus far.
I
I mean,
agree.
I don't want to be obnoxious about it because I know there's some
Well,
people
live
that are.
action, I think Rebels beats it out for me, but that's just
Yeah, exactly. Like
there's so many, there's so many.
I'm not trying to be like holier than that, like a lot of people online
Oh
try to be
yes,
about
well
it.
there's that. Yeah,
But Andrew's definitely my favorite. So, since season two was announced, I've been extremely excited
it's
for it. So I'm very, very happy that we finally have a trailer or a teaser trailer, whatever we're
interesting
calling it.
teaser.
So
What do you think of the rock music use in there?
it was interesting. I'm not gonna lie and say that it didn't throw me off because obviously we've been conditioned to expect some sort of music when it comes to Star Wars,
Yes,
right? And that conditioning has created an expectation of, oh, Star Wars has to be this. And obviously the trailer didn't stick to that. And in many ways I thought that Skeleton Crew was starting to prepare us for this by having the Huttese translation of of Major Tom, I think it
Major
was the song.
Tom. Yeah.
So but now we just have like, the full English version of the rock song that's in Andor season 2. So obviously at first I was taken aback a little bit and be like, oh, that's kind of strange vibe, especially for a show like Andor. But then you rewatch it and you take away or when I say you, I mean me. When I take away my preconceived notions of what I expect and just see it for what it is. I mean, it's like, this is great. I mean, it fits the vibe. I understand what the marketing team at Lucasfilm is doing by trying to appeal to a wider audience because, Star Wars can't only be for the people that already like Star Wars. Star Wars has to appeal if it wants to continue, surviving and getting more people to engage with it, has to appeal to a wider fan base. I'm just like, that's a great way to do it. Get people excited and have a high energy trailer that people can connect to. I'm for it. If we can get more people into Andor, especially in this day and age when Andor is kind of telling the stories that we kind of need in the current environment that we're in, I'm all for it. So yeah.
No, it's great, and it felt to me almost more like peppy and upbeat,
Hmm.
almost more like no more sitting around and moping and giving long monologues that we saw in season one.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
It's like, let's get to the fight. It's like, okay, I don't know if we're gonna get a lot of Luthen giving more of his monologues.
Hmm.
I was thinking the other day, Luthen's great because he drives me insane, but in the right way.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's sort of like you're sitting there with Luthen, it's like, good grief, man, cheer up.
He's
He's got,
stressed out. He's
got a
stressed
little
out
bit
like
of
a
a
lot of
death
us. Yeah.
wish, yeah. She's like, got a death wish. So I had this idea. What if he doesn't die in season two?
That would be the plot twist that I would not be expecting because I'm
Because it feels like
expecting him
he
to
kind
go the
of
way of the
wants
dodo.
to.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like he wants to
I mean,
die for the
n
cause.
I mean, now that you say it, he might be a double or triple agent, and he's maybe like backdoor working for the Empire, and that's how he doesn't die. He's just like, actually, surprise, surprise, I'm actually a
Yeah,
super
that
deep
would be
undercover
interesting.
ISB agent. That would be soul crushing. I would
Mm.
not want that. But now that you're mentioning that, it's like, oh, what if? What
Well, I
if?
mean, what if he doesn't die and it's like that's what he wants, but he doesn't get that?
Hmm. Hmm.
That would be an interesting story twist, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's great to see director Krennic.
Hmm.
I mean, we love Ben Mendelsohn. Anytime he shows up in a movie, it's like, oh yeah, there's my guy. Mhm.
And I think that's one of the great things of, I think a lot of people have criticized prequels
Mhm.
uh, because of like, well, we know what happens to the characters, so like, how can this be more interesting? And and that has some validity in some instances, but in this case, we've already proven, obviously, that like going back and exploring characters that we've already known, can pay off in spades. And I think that Krennic is definitely a character that there's so much more to learn
Oh
about
yeah.
because I don't know if you read the Rogue One prequel novel Catalyst.
I actually
Uh,
did not, unfortunately.
so excellent, and there's so much Krennic in there
Hmm.
that I absolutely just love, and it gives even more backstory, right, to a story that's already backstory. So like I'm all in, and
Yeah.
having seen him in the Bad Batch in that little small cameo in that one scene, I'm just like, we need more director Krennic being dramatic and
Being
waving
dramatic, yes.
his what's it called, his cape around.
Yeah, doing the real, dramatic turns.
Yeah, we need more of that for sure.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, and of course K2SO, which I'm
K2SO,
excited about.
which I'm excited about, don't get me wrong, but I was a little concerned that we didn't get to see B2 Emo in the trailer.
Yes,
So
I agree there.
I'm like, what's going on with our sweet boy? He went through a lot in season one,
He
so
wants more of the.
I don't want the attention taken away from B2 Emo to K2SO. I want justice for our sweet red
Yes,
robot child. Yeah.
our little fire hydrant.
Yep.
That's what he looks like. B was such a great character, and And the other thing, and this is just me, I have to confess, I do ship Didra and Nero and Cyril Karn as a couple.
Hmm.
A weird, toxic
Yeah,
couple, something going on. But I
absolutely.
wonder if that will continue, if their stories are going on a different path.
We'll see. I mean, it's gonna be interesting because I think obviously the things that Cyril likes about Deidre aren't, there's no love in either direction. It's just they see toxic traits in each other that they're attracted to, either power, subservience, or whatever you want to call it. It's completely unhealthy attractions in either direction. So it'll be interesting to see like how those relationships are developed further. And it's one of the things that I'm curious to see how it's going to be managed in the show, because we know that it's going to be what is it, four arcs of 3 episodes,
Yeah,
or 3 arcs of 4 episodes,
yeah,
something like that. 4 arcs of 3 episodes, there we go, because it's a month.
yes,
um and each one is going to have a time jump. So I wonder if the show's going to have enough time, right, to develop these relationships that we're talking about. But I trust Tony Gilroy and Bo
mm,
Willimon and the rest of the writing team. So I'm ready to take this journey and see
yeah,
where the characters end up. I mean, we know where Cassian ends up, but where the rest go.
yes, and I can't wait. It's going to be right after Star Wars Celebration,
Hmm.
so that'll be quite nice. And then I'll be off to Galaxy's Edge after that. So it's going to be a fun time.
It's gonna be busy, and then we
Busy,
have
busy.
the re-release of Revenge of the Sith
Oh,
in
yes.
4DX in theaters. So there's a lot of Star Wars down the pipeline. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you can either engage with the politics in that movie or just take it for what it is. I don't know.
Let's just say George knew what he was doing. Let's
Yeah,
put it that
yeah.
way.
Well, we all remember in the Phantom Menace, and everybody thought taxation and trade routes
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
the
So
dumbest thing they ever heard. And now it's
everyone,
like,
yeah,
oh,
it's
and
like
now it's
maybe
like, oh,
there was
okay.
something there. There was something there for
Yeah,
sure.
George knew what he was doing. Alrighty, so today's topic, because the world is kind of a mess right now, we thought we'd take a little break from it and talk about our favorite moments of comedy in the Star Wars saga.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, a show like Andor doesn't really have a sense of humor.
There's a couple moments,
That's
but
a
it's
little
definitely
bit.
it's definitely not known for being cheery.
Thank goodness for Dewey and Tweety, bringing us a little bit of weirdness. I love those guys. Yeah. Um, so before we get into our time, because there are a lot of moments of comedy in Star Wars, Goose, do you have any that didn't quite make the list?
Eh, I don't know if any that didn't make the list, but one of my favorite Star Wars comedy moments of all time, and it's such a small. I mean, I don't know if you would call it a small moment. For me, it's a small moment, but I think personally, I think A New Hope is the at least in the original trilogy, A New Hope is the funniest of the Star Wars movies in a lot
Interesting.
of subtle ways. And for me, and it was always, even since I was like a kid growing up watching the film for the first time and then subsequent rewatches and everything. One of my favorite comedy bits in that film is when they're like in the about to go to rescue Leia at the
Mhm.
detention block, and Obi-Wan has already left to go find her and everything, and he tells Han and Luke to stay there while he does everything. And then R2 is in the records and finds where she is exactly, and then Luke's trying to motivate Han to get out and be like, "Hey, let's go rescue her." And Han's just like, "Hey, the old man says we have to wait right here." And then Luke says, "Oh, but they're gonna kill her." And Han just replies, cold-heartedly.
Yes.
Better her than me. And for me, like that,
Yes.
I don't know why, but that is just comedy gold. I was just like, that is perfect comedic timing from Harrison Ford. So I don't know why, but that moment has always stuck with me as like one of the funniest bits in all of the Star Wars films.
It's a good one. I think that it's really very much a Han Solo moment.
Hmm.
And we know with all the storytelling with Han, he really does care. But he puts on this, like, yeah, I don't care about anything attitude.
Hmm.
And that's part of the charm of the character. Is he's always trying to be kind of cocky and devil may care, but underneath, he's lovable.
Hmm.
But yeah, that moment really definitely demonstrates Han Solo. I mean, that is an ultimate Han Solo moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, Harrison Ford, his sense of comedy is brilliant. He's got
He's
such good
hilarious
timing.
on and off the camera. Like, 'cause every
Yes.
time I see an interview with him, he's just hilarious. And like, obviously, he's like the very dry humor. He always pretends to be
Yeah.
serious and gruff, but it's all a bit. So like, he's just incredibly funny guy.
Yeah, and he's got so many moments in the original trilogy and in The Force Awakens where
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
he
Hmm.
just delivers funny lines. And I think part of it is the deadpan.
Hmm.
That's part of the comedy, I think. And he's got so many moments that are just like hilarious. And yeah, A New Hope is a lot funnier than we sometimes give it credit for.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you have any other runner-ups, you think?
Runner up would another one. It's I mean, C3PO also has like I mean, he's the comic relief in many ways with R2.
That's true.
But and it's another like small moment because he has a lot of little small moments in Empire Strikes Back. But
Hmm.
one that always gets me is it's kind of I don't know if it's confirmed to be a fourth wall break, but that's when they're escaping Echo Base after,
Hmm.
the Empire destroys like their shield generator and they're like marching in and they gotta go into the
Hmm.
Millennium Falcon to leave. And he's obviously lagging behind Han and Leia because they run much faster than him. And when he gets to the door, they close the door behind him, and he just like looks at the camera and just says "typical,"
Yeah,
and
how
then they just
difficult.
and they just open
Yeah.
the door and then like bring him in. And I just thought that was just so hilarious because it's like this little comedy bit. And
Yes.
again, kudos to Anthony Daniels for being a perfect British butler
Yes.
and
He
not
is absolutely
understanding the
perfect.
seriousness of a situation to just make it particularly more funny than it would have been
Yes.
normally.
Yeah,
That's
Anthony Daniels, I mean, his comedy sensibility is really there.
hmm
And it easily could not have been,
yeah.
but he does such a good job with it. You're right, how typical. I love that moment. Yeah, hurry up, Goldenrod. This Han Solo
Yeah,
yelling at him. I
yeah,
mean,
I think Empire Strikes Back might be the funniest of the C3PO movies. Even though Empire Strikes Back is probably the least funny of the original trilogy, it does have the best C3PO moments. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. I'll
it's
need
true.
to do a rewatch to confirm my theories here.
Any other moments that stood out to you that you want to talk about?
Sequel trilogy, the simple little moment just when BB-8 does the little lighter thumbs
Yeah,
up. It's
love
like
that.
also comedy gold. It's just like a little moment that I think cracked up. I remember the screening that I went to see it for the first time. Everyone just cracked up at that little moment, and I think like subtle some yeah, comedy doesn't have to be a bit, doesn't have to be like this big drawn out joke or complicated, line or anything. It can be just like a simple gesture that just like cracks the audience up. And I think that's another one that like I really appreciate. Because we can talk about like all the not cliche, but like the ones that everyone knows with like K2SO saying, "Hey, you have been rescued," and like all the silly bits in Rogue One, which are hilarious. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes just a little thumbs up is just all you need to crack a smile.
Yes, that moment in the theater. That got a big laugh. And then to that. Can't believe it's been 10 years since that movie.
It's
It's
insane.
insane.
It
Yes.
makes me think that time doesn't exist. It's just like what is time?
Yeah,
But for me, it was still for me it's still 2019, you know. So this is the fact that we're in 2025 is absurd.
yeah. I mean, I'm about to turn 30, so it was 30 when I saw it.
Hmm.
Like, oh no. The one that stands out that didn't question the list that I love is probably one of the most memeable moments from The Mandalorian.
Hmm. Oh, I didn't even think about
And
fear.
it's
Yeah.
from chapter 4, Sanctuary. Din Djarin and Cara Dune are fighting outside. And then they
Yes.
look up, and there's Grogu with his soup, sipping his soup.
Hmm.
One of the most memed moments in Star Wars. I swear that's my niece. That's what she does when she eats. She just sits there like, whatever, watching us. Yeah, that moment is quite funny. But I remember seeing it for the first time, being really quite tickled by that.
Yeah,
I
that was
mean,
good.
Grogu has so many hilarious moments in Star Wars. Like when he's fighting in this platoon in Mos, whatever the one that Paul Vance is protecting,
Oh my God, what's it called?
and John and Link.
Not Mos
Mos
Espa,
Pelgo. Mos
Mos
Pelgo.
Pelgo. There we go. There we go.
And
I
then
gotta
that's where
brush
I
up because
start
I
to
got
go,
trivia tomorrow, so I can't
yes,
embarrass
and
myself.
I'm rooting for you on that one.
Thank you, thank you. You're rooting for the right team. I don't
Yes,
know if
the
we'll
champ
win, but it's the
champ
right
is
team.
rooting for you.
We
Yes,
appreciate that.
the Grogu has so many funny moments. Like when he eats the frog,
Hmm. Hmm.
or
Hmm.
even when he does a little flipping around. It just brilliant bits of comedy.
Yeah, the first episode of season 2 when
Mhm.
they're at the wrestling match, and then like, by now he knows what the whistling birds
Yeah,
are, and he immediately like presses the button to close the pram. Also comedy gold on that one.
yes. And Mandalorian is full of funny
Hmm.
moments. Mm, so I guess do you want to get into our top five then?
Yeah, yeah. Lead the way, and I
All
shall
right.
follow.
Why don't you give us your number five, guys?
Let me look up real quick. So I think a classic one that it might be on everyone's radar. Maybe not, but for me, a top comedy moment, and again, it comes from Harrison Ford, is definitely it's for Force Awakens, and it's that scene when they're at Starkiller Base, they're ready to go rescue Rey, obviously, but then also find the weaknesses in Starkiller Base so that the Resistance can do their assault, and then Finn confesses, right, that he doesn't know where the things are. He just lied about it so they can come
Yeah.
rescue Ray because he's actually just a janitor. And then Han is just like, the galaxy's counting on us. Like, how are we gonna do this? And Finn's just like, we'll just use the Force. And Harrison Ford slash Han Solo just does the best line delivery, puts Finn against the Millennium Falcon. Just like, that's not how the Force works. So perfect delivery, and I think one of the all-time great comedy moments
Yes.
of Star Wars and Harrison Ford. Period.
He is extremely funny. And that moment, yeah, I remember that moment just yet again, another memeable moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
But absolutely brilliant because Han understands the Force to a degree, but he knows that Finn's idea of it is rather ridiculous.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford is so funny,
Hmm.
and that moment, I mean, is a a standout moment in the sequel trilogy as far as comedy. And I love that, all the stakes are raised. Everything depends on them. If he gets this classic Han Solo.
Yeah, and you have to cut the tension sometimes with humor, so otherwise there's too much. So I think that Star Wars does a really good job at that. Excuse me, at that aspect, right, of like building tension, but also having like moments of release with
Yeah,
small pockets of humor without taking away from the seriousness, right, of the situation.
yeah, all right. So that's a really good choice. My number five is also from the sequel trilogy. Then The Last Jedi. Luke is teaching
Mm-hmm.
Rey about the Force, and he has her sit on that rock at the top of the mountain on Octo. He said, well, it starts out with him saying, reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And she literally reaches out. And he rolls his eyes. I mean, that's just a great moment. Yeah, but then he tells her, close your eyes. He picks up that stick from the tree and starts tickling her fingers. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I feel something. And he's like, yeah, yeah, that's the Force. And then he slaps her with it
Mm-hmm.
on the hand, and her reaction. It's hilarious, but that is a great moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember seeing it in the theater. It really made me laugh.
Yeah.
And what's funny about it, I think, is the idea of Ray taking things maybe too literally,
Mm-hmm.
which cracks me up because in real life, how often do we misunderstand and take things literally when they're meant to be figurative? I mean, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
That
it
moment,
also
yeah,
plays to show like also Luke's character where
yeah,
he's expecting her to just know what things are
hmm,
too. So it's kind of like both ends of the coin, right? Where like obviously Rey doesn't know anything about the Force because she's only heard the rumors, and Luke's Jedi Academy never took off. So to Rey, like the Jedi still are this ancient mythical thing. So like, how would she know what the Force is, right? And then Luke's on the other side of the thing where he's a Jedi Master and has been for decades, and he knows almost everything there is to know about it. He just assumes that she's gonna know. So that was a fun relationship there between the two of them, and I'm glad you brought it up because Last Jedi is definitely probably my favorite of the contemporary Star Wars film, and I
good
have to do
choice.
I have to do the flex because it's still so fresh in my mind. But Ryan Johnson did such an amazing job with The Last Jedi, and yesterday I was extremely privileged to be able to go here in Chicago to this movie theater that I absolutely love called the Music Box, and they were doing a screening of one of Ryan Johnson's first films
I think
called
I saw
Brick.
the pictures you posted.
Yeah. So he was doing a screening over there of Brick. Well, not him. Like there was another festival going on, and they
Yeah,
were they were screening Brick, and he was in person there for a live Q&A, and I was
nice.
extremely, 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 extremely lucky and privileged to be able to shake his hand and take a photo with him after the event. So,
Yes,
it's a meeting, and I'm not, I'm wearing the shirt now. So,
yes,
it's one of
yes.
those things where like, it's
That's a good
such a
shirt.
special
That's a
moment.
good
It's
shirt.
yeah, super yucky, man.
Yeah, no,
So
you're right. Ryan Johnson, we all kind of know the debacle about the film.
mhm.
We all know that
Unjust,
it
unjust,
wasn't
if I will be
received.
honest.
Yeah, very unjust. It was not received well by some parts of the fandom.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to also point out, neither was The Empire Strikes Back
Hmm. Hmm.
in its time. Um, who knows if social media had existed in 1980?
Oh,
Who knows the kind
it
of
would have
things
been
they would have said?
crucified. Yeah, absolutely. Yep,
Yeah.
totally agree.
But Ryan Johnson, yeah, is a terrific director. The Glass Onion and Knives Out, I mean, great films.
Hmm.
Rick in some of his other movies. Looper, I believe,
Looper, correct, correct, correct.
and The Last Jedi. And yeah, The Last Jedi, I noticed in recent years is slowly becoming quite liked by the fandom.
Hmm.
I think maybe it took a while to
It's gonna,
digest it, as it
yeah,
were.
it's gonna be, it's one of those things, right? Where
Hmm.
the people that are loudest about it are the generations that, I mean, in my estimation about a lot of
Hmm.
this is like the people that hate on the sequels the most are the prequel kids that got bashed on for liking the prequels when
Oh,
they came out.
yeah.
So I think it's this unfortunate is cyclical generational trauma thing where now I have to inflict the pain on you that was inflicted upon me, and we just have to like break those cycles and be like, hey, maybe if the movie didn't connect with me, but it connected with someone else, I can just let that person enjoy it instead of like taking it personally and destroy everyone else's enjoyment. But uh, yeah, and same with the prequels. It took a couple of years, but when the people that grew up with those films,
Hmm.
that is their Star Wars, starts, engaging with it more actively in the way that we are, they'll be out on mass, and we'll see that there's gonna be. I don't like to use the word redemption because it doesn't need redemption, but
Yeah, you
there'll
need
be
it.
there'll be more outward love, and I'm looking forward to that because it deserves it.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I think we're already seeing
Hmm.
some of that. But Luke, I mean, has so many hilarious moments in The Last Jedi.
Hmm.
And one that I forgot to mention that was like a runner-up is the namesake of this podcast.
Yoda.
The spirit of Yoda appears to Luke, and Luke sees the tree burning, and he says, "The sacred Jedi texts." And Yoda says, "Read them, have you?"
Page
And then
turners,
he
they
says,
were not.
"Page turns, they were not." That is a hilarious moment.
Hmm.
And Luke's like, "Well, he's like, "But no, I haven't read them." That is a hilarious moment, and a lot of people felt it was out of character for Yoda to be called goofy, but I remind people, remember The Empire Strikes Back?
Hmm.
He's actually pretty silly in that. It's all part of his humor. And that moment I loved, and the name of the podcast came from that. All right, what's your number 4?
Four, I have written here. What the hell did I write here? Uh, oh my God, I can't understand my handwriting, so I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go with my third one until I decipher what my handwriting was. But my third one was, it's again from A New Hope, and it's again C-3PO, and it's the scene where everyone's in the garbage masher, garbage disposal. I forgot what the actual terminology is, and they're trying to get C-3PO right to get
It's just
R2 to
63827.
to stop the compactor walls from crushing them to death, and then he's able to succeed, but then because they're celebrating, and in their celebration it sounds like they're yelling, it sounds like they're dying to see 3PO and in the comm link, so he's just yelling to R2, oh, curse my metal body, I've killed them. And that bit always
God,
got me. It's like how
that is the funniest.
C-3PO misreads every situation and then exaggerates everything that's happening. It's always great.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about New Hope having such a great sense of humor. And yeah, that scene makes me laugh too. And C-3PO misunderstanding as he often does.
Yeah.
And it's a great moment because it's also triumphant that they escape and stuff. So it's just a great moment in terms of storytelling and great moment of humor to relieve a bit of the tension
Hmm.
because it does get very tense in that moment. And but they managed to fall through, and C3PO misunderstanding. It makes for a great moment where you can take a breath and just be like, oh, okay, everything's
Hmm.
fine. Yeah, the great use of how to undercut the tension with the laugh. And it doesn't feel out of place.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, great stuff. C3PO is consistently hilarious in like all the movies. Yeah, oh goodness, it's Han Solo. You know, that great moment in Force Awakens. And yeah, great stuff. Just wonderful. Um, and Anthony Daniels is, I mean, we've seen him, interviews and hosting panels. He is hilarious in his very British way.
Very dry humor,
Very dry,
but
yes.
humor nonetheless.
Yeah, so my number four, were you able to decipher yours?
No,
Okay, well, I'll
I'll
come to
have
that
to
one
skip
next.
that one and figure out another one.
Yeah. Uh, so my number four is from The Empire Strikes Back, which, as you say, it's a dark movie,
Hmm.
but it's also very funny in certain scenes. This is kind of the darkly comic moment. Captain Nita has failed to capture
Hmm. Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Millennium Falcon and says, I'm going to go apologize to Lord Vader, which we all kind of knew,
Was not gonna go
uh-oh,
well.
not going to go well. And we see Vader choking him out
Hmm.
and kills him. It says, apology accepted.
Hmm.
I love that moment because it's darkly funny, but it's very much in keeping with Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
the Clone
definitely.
Wars, Anakin is darky and obnoxious.
Hmm.
Vader is too. You were going to say,
No, I was gonna say that it's one of those examples that shows that because I know when Rogue One came out, there's like that infamous uh,
yes.
pun of like, "Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director Krennic." And I remember that people were kind of upset that Vader was doing a joke. I'm just like, have you not seen any of the other Star Wars movies? And I think that's a perfect example. It just kind of shows how Vader has always kind of had some sick humor to him when the time calls for it.
Yes, and having watched like the Clone Wars, Anakin is obnoxious.
Hmm.
He likes to throw out quips and you know, comments here and there. Vader's still got that personality.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, the choke on your aspirations moment. It's like, yeah, Darth Vader would make a dad joke.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because he's just like, I'm in charge, and I can say whatever. So just still retains that snarky personality.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so the Captain Nita moment is great because it's one of those where you're laughing, but maybe you shouldn't be.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Like, oh, he just killed somebody. But still, it's funny in a very kind of twisted way. And yeah, Vader would totally be like, let me throw out a one-liner just because I feel like doing it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny because watching like the Clone Wars, it banter with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka.
Yeah.
He's very snarky and obnoxious, and it works as Vader too.
Hopefully we get to see some more of it if Anakin, if Hayden Christensen returns as Anakin in Ahsoka season two. We know obviously
Yeah.
season one he returned. He wasn't his full snarky self on that one, and rightfully so. But hopefully now that he's returned to Ahsoka's life, we'll maybe see some of that. But that's pure speculation on my part.
There are enough systems. That'll be fun. Great. Did you figure out your
I did, I
replacement
did,
to number four?
I did, I did.
Or is it the original number four?
It's my handwriting sometimes it
Sorry.
betrays me sometimes. But it's Attack of the Clones, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi's early in the film when they're trying to find, it's after the first assassination attempt on Padme's life, and they're trying to find Sam Wessel, and they go into this bar in Coruscant, and it's like the neon bar, and we see all the cameos. Anthony Daniels cameos there. Ahmed Best is there. We
Yes.
see all the sports, all the TVs with sports on them, and then
Including pod
oh,
racing.
including pod racing. And
Yeah.
then Obi-Wan's just like, "Oh, you keep looking, but I'm gonna go up to the bar for a drink." And then we see
Yes.
Sleaze Bagano. I forgot his first name though. There
Even
we go. There
Susan
we
Hannah.
go. He goes to offer Obi-Wan some death sticks, and Obi-Wan delivers an amazing, nonchalant line of, "You don't want to sell me death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life." And it's a one of those moments that's short, not played out for like huge laughs, but Obi-Wan's annoyance at like this guy trying to sell drugs to a
Yeah.
Jedi, that he's just like, just go home and reevaluate everything that you've
Yes.
done is excellent. And obviously Ewan McGregor's delivery helps completely, and the fact that
He's
he's
so
just doing
good.
it while trying to relax and have a drink while on the job trying to find
Yeah.
a senator's killer just makes it even funnier.
Totally a thing Obi-Wan would do.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I could see Alec Guinness doing that.
Hmm.
Being like, I'm just going to get a drink. Just like whatever. And I love that, yeah, Ewan's delivery is like quick and to the point. And it's almost a, you could say, throwaway scene, but it does establish, continues to establish Obi-Wan's character.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just like very calm and nonchalant with a slightly sarcastic edge.
Hmm. Hmm. And
And
obviously
yeah,
a
Ewan doesn't
callback
count
to A
that.
New Hope with the, you don't need to see his identification. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to Alec Guinness,
Hmm.
who was a genius at delivering comedy in a very
Hmm. Hmm.
droll way. Um, like on Hunt's like, you've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Hmm.
He's like, should I have? And then Hunt's like, the whole Kessel Run thing. And Obi-Wan just like raises his eyebrows.
Hmm.
Like, really? And Ewan is able to carry that quality with him um, into the prequels and particularly in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. He gets to deliver some pretty fun lines.
Yeah.
That's very that droll and kind of calm and collected. It's great stuff. Um, and the Districts moment, one of the most famous moments in the film.
Hmm.
All right, well, let's see. Well, my number three. Let's see, I gotta think about this. Is a classic line from Yoda in Return of the Jedi. One of the great, lines that we all quote. When Luke goes back
Oh
to the
yeah,
hut
yeah, 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 yeah.
and Yoda says, "When 900 years old you reach, look as good you almost."
Hmm. Hmm.
I love that moment because I mean Yoda is Frank Oz does such a great job of
Hmm.
making Yoda serious, but also making him very funny.
Yeah.
And very much it's kind of a dark line because, we know Yoda's dying,
Hmm.
but Yoda is still able to find some sense of humor in uh his character, and he's still able to have a laugh even when he's on his last legs.
Hmm.
And that's very much like Yoda. He's very much in keeping with this idea. Yes, he is a wise sage, but he's also a complete goofy too.
Hmm.
And he has a real sense of keeping that going. Even as he's dying, he's still throwing out the one-liners.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, of course, there's a very quoted line in Star Wars. What are your thoughts on that scene?
It's always good because it's like you said, Yoda has always been excellent at delivering humor, and at that point, it's kind of a different kind of humor because the one that we saw in Episode 5 in Empire, right? It's more him being a mischievous self and
Yes,
trying to mask who he is to Luke, so that Luke can't see through the funny facade that there's a master behind it. But in Return of the Jedi, it's more so like he's like tired, he's tired, he's about to die, but even he's exhausted of Luke's questions, right? He's just like, man, like I'm ready to go. This has been a long journey. This has been a long battle that we have been in here, and and through it all, he's able to just find the small moment of comedy to also bite back at Luke for asking too much of him in a very vulnerable situation for him. So yeah, it speaks to the writing because this was Lawrence Kasdan. I forgot who the co-writer on Return of the Jedi was, but Lawrence Kasdan there, like helping write some really good dialogue there for Yoda, which, like you said, Frank Oz just helping the delivery through not just his voice acting but also the puppetry.
yes. The puppetry is so extraordinary.
Hmm.
What he was able to do with that puppet. It's still to this day, it's like, oh my gosh.
I mean, and as much as I love The Last Jedi, one thing that as much as I love the Yoda scene in Last Jedi, there's something still about the puppet that just seemed a little off. But that puppet from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, there's just magic in that little guy that somehow hasn't been able to be recaptured, not even in the digital Yodas of the prequels or the puppet Yodas of the Last Jedi. That's why I'm also rooting for Acolyte season 2 or the continuation of the Acolyte story in some other way, so that we got that cliffhanger of the back of Yoda's head. I'm just like, oh man, I would really like to see how that would play out, to see like if they are able to capture the magic of the original trilogy puppet.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny in the original trilogy we have Yoda's sense of humor. But in The Last Jedi, when he shows up, he's still being the same. He's still laughing at
Hmm.
Luke.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's still laughing with his cane, like, come on, man, kind of thing. And it's just wonderful to see. But yeah, I do love that moment with Yoda giving his age and being like, looking good, you will not,
Hmm.
It's sort of a great put down from Yoda in a loving sort of way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But that moment definitely stands out to me as a funny, funny and somber,
Hmm.
and I like that. All right. What is your number two?
Number two, and I mean, obviously, I think it needs to be said that not like this list is not necessarily like in order of funniest. It's just it's a no particular order, just funny moments that like I that mean something to me. So, it ebbs and flows right with my uh state of mind. So some days some will be funnier than others. But for my number two, again, it's a film that I value a lot, and a film that got a lot of hate when it came out, and a movie that I always loved when it came out, and I still to this day think that it's actually great, even though some people still say it's not one of the better Star Wars films, and that's The Phantom Menace. One of my favorite Star Wars films, and has one of my favorite
Oh
characters
yes.
in it,
Yeah.
in the way of Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn,
It's-
and a movie that has a lot of comedy. Granted, I will say that the Jar Jar Binks comedy doesn't do it for me as much. But there's one scene with Jar Jar Binks that is when after they land in Naboo for the first time and like are escaping the Trade Federation transport ships and everything, and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are having like the banter of like who Jar Jar is, and then Jar just says, "Oh, I speak." And at that point, Qui-Gon responds with, "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." And that just cracked
That's a
me up
good one.
then, still cracks me up today, and it works on a lot of different levels because one, it's it's a funny burn, right? It's a funny sick. It's sticking it to Jar Jar in a lot of ways, but also kind of intellectual too in a lot of ways because sometimes we see it right at work or at school or at the supermarket or wherever when we're friends or family or whatever. We see people that are speaking, but just because they're saying things and putting out words doesn't mean that they're necessarily being intelligent about the or
Yes.
cogent about the
Uh,
thoughts that they're having.
I've
So
got a few names of people, but I won't say them here. And
but
I
so
think you know
yeah,
who I'm talking about.
I can think of a few.
Yes, yes, that is a great moment, and Liam Neeson is terrific in the film.
Hmm.
And yes, that is a great line. The funny moment with Jar Jar leads to the "You follow me now, okay, day."
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the line that always cracked me up. Um, yeah, it's one of those lines that just sort of it's funny, and then you think about it and you go, "Oh, that's deep."
Yeah.
And but Liam delivers it so well, and it's just great to have kind of a slight put down on Jar Jar. But
Hmm.
I mean, we love Jar Jar around here, but maybe not all his comedy works.
Hmm. Hmm.
But nonetheless, it is a great moment between the two characters.
Hmm. And there's something to be said about, yeah, that comedy doesn't work for me because I'm not the target audience for the comedy that George was doing with Jar Jar Binks, but I'm sure that for other people that were much younger and saw Jar Jar, they connected immediately with that humor, and ultimately that's the people that George was making those films for. So I always have to, take it uh, have a nuanced approach to a lot of this. It's like George wasn't making episode one necessarily for the diehards that had seen the original trilogies. He was making it for a new generation of kids. So I always have to kind of have that nuanced approach to how the comedy was intended. But
Yeah.
we stand Jar Jar and we love
Oh
Ahmed
yes.
Best.
We love all of this around here. I think that so my number two is, shall we say, unintentionally funny.
Hmm.
On End of the Sith, when Palpatine finally reveals his true nature, fighting with Mace Windu.
Hmm.
And this, of course, leads us to the no, no, you shot, all
Hmm.
the
Very
time.
interesting acting choices.
Yes, I mean, we love Ian McDiarmid. We
We
do.
love Ian McDermott. He's great. Yes.
And we love that he goes completely off the rails in his evil ability, the
Hmm.
my child, I made, so all that ridiculous over the top, wonderful acting,
Hmm.
which we love, but the moment that really goes off the rails is the great unlimited power.
Hmm.
And it's funny because every time that Constantine goes full on alternate power, he ends up hurting himself
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
dying. So it's like, gee man, you might want to tone it down.
You'd think he'd learn by now.
But Constantine is great because while there is nuance in like Darth Vader, there's no nuance in Palpatine.
Hmm.
It's all there, and the delivery is so brilliant because it's just so funny,
Yep.
unintentionally. But
Unintentionally. That's 100%
that's what George
a
Lucas
hundred
was
percent
going
true.
for. That's what George wanted. So you
Yeah,
know,
he's an actor doing a job, and at the end of the day, he has to please his boss, and the boss that day asked for that one. I mean, who knows? Maybe there were dozens of different takes where he played it a little more straight, but George, that's the one George wanted, and that's the one we get to enjoy now
yes,
nowadays.
the chewing of the scenery is so great. And I do go with Joseph Scrimshaw take on the scene.
Hmm.
And the company's like, screw it. I'm gonna reveal my true self
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
and go completely bonkers. Because that's who he really is to underneath. And it makes me laugh unintentionally. But Ian McDiarmid is chewing the scenery with so much joy that you just can't help but find it attractive in a way
Hmm.
and funny.
Yep.
Yeah. Any thoughts on it's the career of Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine?
I mean, I think it's kind of a poetic journey that he's had where he's been the right guy to be this character throughout his whole life. He started playing Palpatine in Return of the Jedi back in 83, I think it was. And
Yes.
he was a much younger man at that time, and they aged
He's
him
younger
up to
than
look like this, old decrepit emperor. And then by luck, George decided to make the prequel trilogy in the 90s, and he was the right age to come back as Palpatine. And then, with the lo and behold, for the sequel trilogy, he was able to come back as an even old, like more probably more age appropriate for that Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker
disgusting
than he
looking
was
Palpatine.
during Return of the Jedi. So I think we've been definitely blessed with having Ian McDermott still with us and having been lucky to be appropriate for Palpatine all this time. And I like that he's also, staying involved now with the voice acting for Palpatine because during the Clone Wars he didn't do voice acting for the Emperor. I mean, for Chancellor Palpatine, but
Um,
thankfully now in Bad Batch and Clone Wars, some episodes, no, Clone Wars in Rebels. Sorry, in Rebels he was able to return and do some of the Palp's voice. So hopefully that we have much more of that going forward.
we do love that Palpatine voice.
Hmm.
Here's a crazy idea. Will he be in Andor season two?
I don't think so. I mean, actually, that's a good question. My first instinct was to say I don't think so, but if he is, I don't know that he'll because Andor's not about all that stuff,
The
right? Andor's
fantasy,
not.
yeah.
It's not about Palpatine, and it's like the system of oppression on everyday people, right? So I think if Palpatine does show up, it might be from the perspective of Mon Mothma or Bail Organa, because I do think
Yeah,
Bail Organa is going to
yeah,
show up. But from their perspective, from their podiums, looking at him giving a speech or something, or like I think it's going to be in an indirect way if he does show up. But I don't think that we're going to have like a scene of, him and Krennic talking because, as cool as that idea is, that's not what the show is about. So, but we'll see. We'll see, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe who knows? Maybe Luthen Rail is Palpatine for all I know, and he just
interesting.
takes off the mask.
Interesting. That'd be quite the twist.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But
No,
we'll
no,
see.
no, 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 that'd be weird.
That'll be extremely
Um,
strange.
yeah, I mean, would be interesting. It's probably not going to happen, but to have Mon Mothma at a meeting with the Emperor,
Hmm.
the tension would be like, whoa.
I think it would be because I remember in season one they mentioned Sly Moore as being one of the guests for Mon Mothma's party,
Yeah,
and I thought that would be like an interesting way to kind of plug her into the crosshairs of the Imperial High Command and Palpatine and everything. So I wouldn't. I think if there's going to be like a connection to Palpatine, it's going to be tangential that way. Maybe Masameda or
okay.
Sly Moore show up to be like, oh, Palpatine has been wondering about X, Y, and Z, but I don't know. I don't see it in the cards. But then again, we got Palpatine and Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though I think it makes more sense there, because he's obviously Vader's master, so in many ways that made a lot more sense. But we only have a couple weeks until we find out.
Yes, and I can't wait till the rides are going to go on.
Hmm.
But yeah, we love Ian McDermott. We love just how over the top he is.
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that's right for the character.
Absolutely.
Completely off the rails. And of course, that voice, the famous Emperor voice.
Hmm.
In Return of the Jedi, he has some of the most quotable lines in the movie.
Yep.
We can all quote them and do our impressions of it, but no one does it better than Ian McDermott.
Well, maybe Sam Witwer. Sam Witwer does
However, yes,
a very good Palpatine voice, I will say.
I had the privilege to meet Sam twice.
Hmm.
Met him at Star Wars Celebration, back when it was in Anaheim, right before we all met each other, that podcast
Hmm.
community, so I missed out on.
I've heard good things about him. I heard that he's a good guy.
Yeah, but I met Sam there, and then I met him again at GalaxyCon last year. So,
Awesome. It was really cool.
yeah, and yes, he can do a great Emperor voice. Great.
Excellent voice actor. So I
He
hopefully
is.
we get to see him back in Star. I mean, he's always done like his cameos in some of the non-mole roles. He always does something here or there, but I would love to see him return to Star Wars proper and as not Star Killer necessarily because I think
Yes.
that's too much. But we love Sam as a voice actor, so and as a live action actor, so I'd love to see him in a different role in
Yes.
some future project.
I would too. He is a great actor. And my word, did they do a good job with Darth Maul
Hmm.
in the Clone Wars.
Yep.
But we love Ian McDermott and we love the Emperor. Maybe not love, but
Love to hate.
certainly find him very funny.
Yes.
Unintentionally. All right. Drum roll. All right, Goose. What is your number one?
The number one that I have, we might get a cameo from my partner's cat, so be wary. My number one is not from the saga, is Rogue One because I think Rogue One is, despite also being a boots on the ground heavy, you know, Andor. I mean, not Andor. It's not adjacent. I mean, it is adjacent. Whatever. You know what I mean.
Yes.
Still has like a lot of humor, especially in the form of Alan Tudyk's K2SO. But there's one scene that I've always thought was particularly the cat just jumped on the desk. So apologies if she uh, meows into the microphone. Um, there she is. But there's a scene when they're finally gonna go into the mission to rescue Galen Erso after getting the communique from Saw Gerrera, and they're at the base in Javin, and all of a sudden Cassian realizes that, or K2SO realizes, one of the two, realize that Jin stole a blaster from somewhere in the base, and then
Oh, yes.
so is saying like, "Oh, aren't you gonna like take it away from her or something?" And then Jin tells Cassian, "Oh, trust both goes ways," all these things, and then at that point, Cassian's like, "Okay, I'm gonna trust you and let you keep the blaster." And then K2SO delivers the line of being like, "Oh, do you know what the odds are of her uh, using that against us?" And Cassian is telling him like, "I don't want to know." And then K2SO just puts his hands up and is just like, "It's high. It's very high." So always excellent delivery, and the fact that it was only conveyed through voice because obviously the face doesn't emote, I think makes the comedy of it that much stronger. But yeah, a little Rogue One nugget in there to spread the humor love outside of the main saga.
Yes. And Alan Tudyk, who we absolutely love around here, is terrific as K2SO. And he is so funny. There's that moment on Jenna where Jen's like, I was afraid they'd, miss you and hit me.
Hmm.
And he's like, doesn't sound that bad to me.
Or the there's a problem with the horizon. There is no horizon.
Yes. But I love the moment with K2 in Jenna when he's pretending to be an Imperial droid. And he says, because of the stormtroopers, like, these are prisoners. And he's like, these are prisoners? Yes, where are you taking, And then Cassian says something and he slaps him. Yeah, I love that moment. Great moment for K2 and playing up the Imperial droid. And then, of course, this leads right into another funny scene with Chirrut Imlay and Basil. With the, you almost shot me. Well, that whole sequence. So, yeah, K2SO has so many funny lines. And it's good, too, because that movie's pretty dark.
Yeah, that's a understatement for sure.
He brings a lot of charm.
Hmm.
And I can't wait to see how he fits into Andor season 2. Yeah, that is a very good choice. Yes. You love our buddy K2. I've got my Black Series figure of it up on the shelf there.
Hmm.
Yeah, can't wait to see more of him. And where the heck is B2E though? That's what I want to know.
Hopefully safe somewhere, safe and taken care of.
Yep, as long as Dix is safe, that's all I care. I may or may not have a crush on
Saudi Arjona,
Adria or
I don't
no.
blame you.
Yeah, and maybe she'll get revenge on Deirdre for
Hmm.
hurting her. That'd be nice. Anyhow, so my number one is not from the saga. It's from Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Hmm.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie when Kira is sitting in the cockpit and uh, L3 comes in and sits down and they have their girl talk. That moment cracks me up of L3 expressing her affection for Lando,
Hmm. It could work. It
with
could work.
Kira looking rather like,
Baffled.
what? It's like, how would that work? Oh, it works. Yeah, I mean, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is so funny in real life and on camera.
Hmm.
She's a complete goofball, and she delivers those lines so well. very much in keeping with the kind of character she plays. But that moment just makes me laugh. The dialogue between Kira and L3, and L3 expressing her affection.
Hmm.
It just, it's one of those moments that's just like, this is so ridiculous, but it's hilarious. Solo has a lot of funny moments, I think.
Yeah. It's definitely on the spectrum of funny of the funnier films for sure.
Yeah, so that's the moment that stands out to me. What are your thoughts on our L3 and her longing for Lando?
I mean, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is hilarious, period. I mean, I think everything that I've seen her on, and especially like in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and she's fantastic. So I
Yes.
think she did a wonderful job of bringing another. And I mean, and full disclosure, Solo is not my favorite Star Wars film. Like I am not too fond of it. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge's take on that droid was, I think, spectacular. I think should be on the same level as K2SO and some of the other MVP of droids in the Star Wars saga.
Hmm.
And I mean that scene was particularly funny, but I think the other one is just, when she's when they're in Kessel, right, and like doing she's liberating all the droids.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, also hilarious, like her line
Found their
deliveries there.
purpose.
Hmm.
That's a great moment. I also love the moment when Hero beats the crap out of one of the guards.
Hmm.
Anthony's watching goes, whoa, just funny with one liner.
Hmm.
But yes, we do not see you all the rage around here as well. And L3 is terrific. Her relationship with Lando is hilarious.
Absolutely.
Um,
Which is helped by Donald Glover's performance too. I think they play really well off of each other.
L3, let go of the mean man's face.
Hmm.
Mean man played by Clint Howard, oddly enough. So, yeah, no, it's L3 is hilarious. And I love just how snarky she is. Star Wars has given us a lot of droids
Hmm.
with a lot of personality, usually rather obnoxious, but we love it. Yeah, that brings us to the end of our favorite comedy moments in Star Wars. I think it's
Hopefully, yeah, a list of joyful moments and for difficult joyful moments for difficult times.
yes, yes, and the I think it's important to remember as fans that Star Wars is funny,
Hmm.
and it should be funny. I don't know how much comedy we're going to get in Andor season two.
Definitely a little less
They go a
than
little
Solo.
serious there. They go a little bit serious on that show.
Hmm.
But many of the other shows and movies are still full of funny, charming, or even uplifting moments.
Hmm.
And if we need it, now's the time. But thank goodness we have it
Hmm.
in this galaxy far, far away, so the guys like you and me can have conversations. Now that we're sad that Donnie couldn't join us, but let's just say scheduling is a nightmare.
It's a nightmare for everything. It's just life has gotten much more complicated lately, unfortunately. But hopefully, yeah, the future hopefully calms down a little bit in more ways than one, and things will become a little more streamlined in how we're able to get back together.
Yes, and at the top of the show, you mentioned our community.
Hmm. Hmm.
We as podcasters are so blessed to be in this wonderful little corner of the Star Wars fandom.
Hmm.
Obviously, you have our kings and queens at Force Center and Star Wars Explained.
Yes.
You know, our great buddies,
Hmm.
Ken, Joseph, Jennifer, Lily, and Alex.
Hmm.
we're like the top, they're the kings of our corner of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fandom, and there's us. There's Triad of the Force, there's Page Trees They Were Not, there's the Bomb Bad Cast, Buddy, Scotty, and Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
There's Cooper and John Wilcox,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we absolutely love. And there's Jared the Dark Jedi, there's Eli and Star Wars in a Galaxy. There's so many magnificent people in this corner of our fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and let's not forget Lauren Reynolds, too.
Mm-hmm.
She's also a great part of this community. But we're very blessed to have that. And as you said in the show, we need community right now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to be a part of it. And I'm glad that Triad of the Force is part of it. Oh, and let's not forget our other Puerto Rican friends,
Mm-hmm.
Alberto and Odie at the
Yep.
Ready.
Ready to Rebellion. Mm-hmm.
And of course, Elder Diaz. We have to mention
Mm-hmm.
his. Maybe as I say his name to but we're very blessed to have this. Lucas, I'm very happy that you agreed to come on my show.
No, no, thank you.
I know that our
Thank you
scheduling is
for always thinking of us and for being patient with the insanity that is our lives and being able to be accommodating and flexible because this is definitely a lot of fun and we need it. We do need to have fun and levity, and especially these days. You know,
Mhm.
they say joy is resistance, and I don't want to abuse that term, but we have to find moments of finding the things that make us happy and indulging in them sometimes. It can't all be doom and gloom. So thank you for reminding me of that and asking me to carve some time to find joy and have fun with the saga instead of like just being, uber political and analytical.
Yeah, I think right now we're falling into the temptation
Hmm.
to want to look at Star Wars purely from the real world politic way, which we should.
Hmm.
But I think also let's not forget that it's fun. And that's probably why it's endured for as long as it has.
Hmm.
And thank you so much, Goose, for joining me. Give my love to Nani.
I shall. I
We
shall.
certainly miss her. And certainly enjoy having you and her on the show and being part of this community
Hmm.
where we all can be involved in each other's projects.
Yep, yep. And
It's
support, yeah, support each
wonderful.
other and be a part of each other's lives for sure.
It's wonderful indeed. So thank you so much, Goose.
Thank you, as always, Brandon. Thank you.
Where can we find you?
Well, nowadays it's actually much easier to find us because thanks to everything that's going on in the world, we have been slowly removing ourselves from platforms that we don't want to support because
Yes.
of what they represent. So really, these days, our focus is on our Blue Sky community. So we're kind of rebuilding everything over there because we had been, on Twitter, as most of us were, and then
Ah,
kind of
yes.
moved into Threads. But then obviously, Meta has also become not that wonderful of a support organization. So now we're committed to Blue Sky. So you can find us there. The other thing that we're trying to build a little more actively is speaking of community is our Discord community. So
Oh,
we have our Triad
yes.
of the Four Discord, which is
Very active Discord.
yeah, I mean, we only started it in earnest the last couple of like maybe a month or a month and a half. So it's slow. It's slow. Not too many people, but it's starting to become something. So we are
See.
humbled and honored to have anyone and everyone who wants to join a community that's about celebrating Star Wars, but also supporting each other as a word of the day as a community. So yeah, find us on Blue Sky and Discord. And if you want to listen to our content just, anywhere where podcasts can be found, just search Triad of the Force and you'll find us. And if you want to see your faces, I don't know why you would, but if you want to see our faces, you can search for us on YouTube, same as Triad of the Force, and you can find us there. And our latest video, as you said, is with our mutual friend Scotty Jayer from the Bombat cast talking about midi-chlorians and
I
why
mean,
they are bomb bad. So make sure to check that out.
I gotta say, honestly, that when he was on my show last week, I think it was one of the best episodes I've ever recorded.
Mhm. Scotty is great. He's
Scotty
amazing.
is fantastic, yes. Well, just so glad you could join me today.
Thank you.
Everyone, please go follow Triad of the Source. They're awesome, and I'm glad to be a part of that community.
And we're glad to have you and very happy that you always think of us.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you hear is the ventilator. Thank you for tuning in to The Guest Awaken with the wonderful Goose from Triad of the Force. As always, may the Force be with you.